Yo, so I want to jump into these questions, and I'm really grateful for the questions. You'll see me using my phone because I have all the questions here, so just don't think I'm being distracted by, what I'm saying, texting my boo thing while I'm talking to y'all. But yes, so one of the first questions is, did she ever harbor feelings of bitterness and resentment towards the persons? If so, how did she work through them? And for me, it was persons with an S. It was my father, first of all, and an uncle in my family. And of course, yeah, I definitely harbored very huge resentment towards both of those people. And the working through it was kind of a process. And when I say process, it was like the Lord, I had to really pray for God to really do that work in my heart, because even the forgiveness is not something I could do really on my own at all. Like, even the forgiveness is like God has to give me the ability to do that. But what really kind of allowed me to get to that point, into that place, is Romans 5:8. That while we were yet sinners, like, Christ died for us. And so I think what we try to do is we try to put like these levels on sin, and we try to be like, oh, but that's a big sin, and oh, that's a little sin. But we serve such a holy God that sin is just sin. And if I've ever done anything before, if I've ever told a lie before, if I've ever stolen before, if any of those things, like while I was yet a sinner, like, Christ died for me. He didn't wait for me to get myself together. He didn't wait for me to get things to a place where I felt like I would be accepted by him. But while I was yet a sinner, he died for me. And I think the main reason of being able to learn to come out of that is to really focus on our own sin. It's that whole plank situation, like focusing on that plank and not that speck in somebody else's eye, but focusing on your plank. Because if in fact you think that you don't have a plank, then you really sincerely truly have a problem, because we all got a plank. And so the focus then gets shifted to like, what is my role? What have I done? And not in this specific situation saying that you did something to deserve that, but I'm saying that in this life period, like, knowing that we serve such a loving God. And sometimes it's hard to really focus on what a loving God really is that would allow such things. But the sovereignty of God is an amazing thing. We were born into this wretched, like, sinful world. And we've been doomed from the beginning with the fall of man. But however, like, let's be real talk about it. Like, let's just be for real. Had I not gone through what I had gone through, literally, you guys probably wouldn't even necessarily have an ear to anything that I had to say. I share in the story so that way now I can actually relate to the people of God. And sometimes people don't necessarily really want to go through on behalf of others, but I'm grateful. I wouldn't even have, the ability, I think, to do poetry, because poetry came from a place being birthed out of a lot of hurt, a lot of pain. And so many of the things that you guys may think are great, they wouldn't have transpired without the things that I actually went through. And so, yeah, that resentment is there. It definitely comes off as problems and issues and concerns sometimes, but man, God is beyond good. Does forgiveness mean that things should go back to the way they were initially, or is it possible to forgive but not let the person back into your life as a means of protecting yourself? By all means, protect yourself. Like, and what I'm saying is that, like, for example, if a guy, is working in the church and he molests a child, should we put him back in ministry and the same, after he's repented before God, put him back to work in the nursery? No, I don't think so. It doesn't mean that, that we should never think that the person can't be restored or that God hasn't forgiven them. If they repent, the Lord has truly forgiven them. But at the same time, like, there are consequences to our actions. And so the consequences are certain things aren't going to be the way that they used to be. Now, for example, like, I still interact with my uncle. You probably couldn't tell that had transpired between us because of how good God is as far as, like, being able to allow me to operate in forgiveness. But it will never go back to the way it was originally before. Now, God may take the ability to kind of restore your relationship, but I don't think that ever really goes back to being the same after such a violation. So I don't think that you should expect yourself to go back to that. But I do expect, not I expect, but the Lord expects us to operate as Christians. And that is to show love, and that is to show respect, and that is to show kindness. But don't be in a position where you feel like, you have to make things go back to the way that they were, excuse me, because of you're trying to be a Christian. No, like, certain things transpire. There are consequences for those actions, and sometimes certain things are severed because of some of the things that have transpired. How long did it take you to heal? I am still healing. ING. Every time I think that, it's like an onion. Like there's layers to this thing. I've been carrying this thing a long time. So, I felt like I've gotten past a lot of great things. But now that I'm getting married, there's more that's gonna arise. I don't know what happens. What happens if my wedding night happens and I tell my husband, like, I just don't want to do this. Like, and thank God I'm with a very amazing, loving, strong, dark, black. That's not important. I'm with a great dude, so he's not really tripping. Like, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It's a deal, but it's not that big of a deal. So I think that we have to be reminded that, hey, like, healing is a process. Like, even now, like, I'm still healing. It took me a long time to even accept his love because I was still healing. And that was part of the healing process. And when I have children, I don't know. Like, who said, like, I may go through it again. I may be so overprotective because of what happened to me. I may not want my child to ever spend the night at somebody's house. I mean, we don't know. But healing is a process. I think it's going to be always an ING when it comes to something like this. I don't think we can ever be like, I've been completely healed. That doesn't bother me ever anymore. Like, you can't say what doesn't bother you anymore because you're still living life. How did you know you had forgiven? I knew I had forgiven when I actually really started to understand my own sin, and I knew it when I was able to interact with that person. My father passed away when I was 15, so that we never got to do that, but I still took a forgiveness that I had to forgive him even though he wasn't alive. Sometimes you think you've forgiven and then certain things get brought to your attention and you realize that you haven't. But we base that on, like, the matter of your heart and the Lord knowing the matter of your heart. If the Lord shows you that you haven't forgiven that person completely and totally, like, it doesn't mean that you have to go to that person and be like, have you forgiven me? Or have I forgiven you, in a sense? I think that you have to be mindful of the whole fact that God is so amazing to be who he is. But furthermore, he exercised the greatest horrific death for the sake of our opportunity to have access to forgiveness. And I think that a lot of it comes back to us as individuals. And again, taking that plank mindset, because it's bigger than that. It's really difficult. It's really hard. Even with this question here, how did your salvation relationship with God influence your trial? It influenced a lot. I had a breakdown when I was 24 years old, and 24, 23, and I couldn't even, for a month, I didn't sleep. And I was just, there were triggers, and I was crying, and I couldn't stop. I thought I was going to have to go into a mental institution. Like, it was just all these flashbacks. And so, I think the salvation aspect doesn't doubt, but sometimes the enemy will make you think that you should doubt God because of what transpired. But as my friend said, it's like cursing God because of rain. Like, God knows what he's doing. And I think that when you start to understand more of the sovereignty of God, when you start to understand more of the magnitude of who God is, the fact that he holds us in the palm of his hands, that he knows what he's doing, like, he sees beyond. And I know it sounds crazy. Like, God knows what he's doing, but he allowed this to happen. I know that sounds crazy. I had the same question in my head. But again, like, he had a greater purpose. My mom started crying the other day when she saw video footage from South Africa, and she saw young women, quoting our way, and she started crying because she had a responsibility in that. She feels guilty. But when she saw what God is doing with my life with all the things that I went through, she sees that God had a greater purpose. It's hard, Joe. This life is hard. Everybody got to struggle. Like, everybody has something that they're dealing with. You don't want to look at somebody else's situation and be like, my situation is bigger than yours or harder than yours. But trust me, there's nothing like being violated in that way. I wish I was there sitting down talking with y'all, because this is such a wide range topic. And I really want this video to go through. Hopefully it does. But this is what I want to say. The Lord knows. He knows you, and he loves you, regardless of what anybody says, and regardless of what your emotions want to tell you or your mind wants to tell you. You got to talk to your spirit and say, listen, as for me, in my house, and when I mean my house, I mean this, me and my house, we will serve God. That doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what God brings against me. Like, it's like kind of like a Job situation. Like, can God say that, about you? Have you considered my servant so and so? Like, that dude had everything, and like literally, it wasn't that he was in sin, that he was reaping what he sowed. Like, no, but he came to a point, literally, where he could have cursed God. And it's crazy that he would endure that. Like, some of us would have not even gotten, once we got our houses taken away and our kids, it would have been a wrap. But all that to say, y'all, like, I have been through it. I've bared through it. I am with you. I still deal with it a lot of the times. But God, that's the most amazing phrase in the Bible. But God, like, he loves you. He is able to heal and continue to take those layers back. He is able to create in you a new mindset, new heart. Like, it's not in vain. That's what you got to believe, and you got to know, like, and because of what the word of God says, it's not in vain. Like, trust me, it's not in vain. Like, then don't even trust me, just trust the Lord. So if there's more questions, pop them out to me. I know it's Saturday for y'all. It's about to be Saturday for me. It's going to be my bridal shower, so I'm a little bit amped about that. We'll see what they get me. Hopefully nothing too whatever. But I love y'all, like, from the bottom of my heart. I thank you for allowing me to share with you, and I pray that we can get up soon. I am coming back to SA, so November, December, and the boo thing is coming too. So looking forward to seeing y'all. Hopefully we can get up again and just have a discussion, because I think this needs to go longer than the few minutes that I have. I love y'all. I'm praying for y'all, and I pray God does an amazing work. And I would say, talk to somebody. Don't think that you can handle this situation on your own. Get with these women of God, and have a conversation and open up, because when you open up, it allows other people to open up and understand. Like, the enemy tries to make us feel like we're alone, and we not. Like, there's too many of us, so I'm praying for y'all. I love y'all, and I really can't wait to see y'all again soon to my favorite place,